What is up, guys? Welcome back to the next layer, where we go deep with athletes and outliers who train, think, and live at the edge. This show is powered by Elos, the performance thermal brand built for cold starts and even harder finishes. Today's guest is a dope one. He is a former soccer player athlete that literally epitomizes to me the ability to peel back layers in multiple disciplines. Nick is a jack of all trades, like I said, playing soccer in his youth to now canyoneering, rock climbing, rafting, and pretty much anything that has to do with the outdoors he's into. In this episode, we will essentially dive into what it takes to deal with the mental and physical layers of Nick's journey in the outdoors. And yeah, with that, I will pass it over to my good pal, Nick, to introduce himself. I love that you're outside for the Outdoors podcast, dude.
Yeah, for sure. And I really appreciate you having me on. Kind of like he already echoed, Nick, super into the outdoors. Me and Anthony know each other from a couple years back, deciding high schools and stuff. I actually shadowed him at Curly, stuff like that.
Crazy,
Both
right? I
played.
forgot
So
about
yeah,
that.
it's wild. Yeah, when you hit me up, I remembered that. Yeah, super fortunate to have you on. I saw what you guys are doing. I thought it was really cool. So just really appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, dope, man. Dope, man. Well, with that being said, let's just dive right into your story, man. You have a pretty cool story as we were catching up. What we hadn't talked for like what 7, 8 years, 7, 8 years before
Something like
I
that. Yeah,
hit you up.
around
Yeah,
there.
dude. Yeah, dude. A lot has gone on for you in the last 8 years for sure. So the last time I remember you was obviously the early days back in high school. As you said, you shadowed me at Curly, and then ended up going to Calvert Hall. We were playing against each other for 4 years in high school. So it started back in the day, but you told me you had a kind of passion for the outdoors even as a young kid, correct?
Yes. Well, grew up with my dad before my parents had split up. My dad's house was down on the water, so I spent a ton of time fishing. There was a couple of nature schools down there that I did some studying with, earned some certificates. Yeah, that definitely fueled my passion for the outdoors, and then kind of took soccer a little bit more serious. So put it on the back burner, never off, but kind of just set back, and then just really got back into it past maybe 7, 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah, what got you into soccer, out of curiosity?
I had played my whole life, like I basketball, baseball, soccer
Yeah.
since, I was 3. And then I just happened to be, not bad. So I just continued taking it more seriously and stuff like that.
Yeah. What made was there ever, would you say, like, if you can remember, like a tension point between when the I guess you felt like your soccer career had peaked versus, and then basically what was the tension point between like your love for the outdoors and your love for soccer, essentially, if you can pinpoint one thing or a couple things.
Yeah, honestly, just the amount of training. I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to spend that much time and effort into when I knew the end result wasn't going to be playing professional like a lot of other players and stuff. And so I thought I would allocate my time doing things that I was more interested in. Took a couple classes in high school and it obviously piqued it a little bit more. So that would probably be the turning point. I'd say just having to go to training as 5, 6 days a
Dude.
week. Weekends, never have free time, super hot. So
And as you go up in level, it just gets worse, bro. Because
it
then
works. Yeah,
they doing the film. You do the study the film on your own, the film sessions before training, the lifts, all that stuff, man. It's a lot. You have to love it. You have to like absolutely love it
exactly. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Um, and you're speaking right, like in life you got to follow your passions too. And if it's not 100% into one thing, then you have to explore others. And that's like honestly my advice to everyone. You shouldn't have just one identity point, one passion, which we both grew up, our identity was soccer. And
For
that's
sure. And I
scary too.
feel like also just in like the Baltimore scene, since it is such like a high level competitive play, like there is just like a weird aspect to it to like realizing that it is okay to just, step away and just be like, I did what I did, and then I kind of just I'm going to end up pursuing other things eventually. So to just take the step, just go for it.
Yeah, dude. And it's exactly, and I think it's like it ends for everyone at some point, right? You might have a 10-year pro career, you might have 4 years of college and that's it, 5 years of college, whatever it is, but it always ends. You're left with you at that point.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, dude. It's the biggest thing, man. You got to have other passions. But no, so why? So I know it was your love for the outdoors was really rekindled when you went to college at Northern Arizona University, right? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, yeah. It's like a Flagstaff. It's situated within the town of Flagstaff, and it's like a mecca for the outdoors. Pine forest runs through the campus, stuff like that. So I was studying wildlife ecology and management, and there's a certificate that certain colleges all over, like Towson is one of them. They offer a really good program for that. But I figured that if I was gonna study that, I felt like it was an area better suited for my interests and to really like take it to the next level. So yeah, for sure, Flagstaff definitely helped with that.
Right. And I'm sure the people you met too, like was there a lot of similar minded people around you when you went there? I mean that's a big jump from Baltimore to
Yeah, no,
Flagstaff.
definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my roommate was a big help with that because he grew up in a smaller, outdoorsy minded town up in Washington. So he already had a ton of experience and he knew a ton of people. So it was perfect. You'd hook up with him and then yeah, meet up.
So we gotta go through the canyoneering story, bro, because I honestly hadn't heard of it until you brought it up.
Yeah.
Full transparency, but I did research before, so I will be able to contribute. So we got to get into how was it? Was this your roommate that got you, or what's the story of the first canyon you dropped into, and how you fell in love with doing this?
Yeah, well, yeah, funny enough, the first canyon, it was actually a coworker. I had worked at an outdoor shop in Flagstaff, just selling anything, hiking boots, rafts, whatever it is. And then he was super into canyoneering. I was always seeing what he was doing. I kind of was looking for a next step up in outdoor activities, like rock climbing, like you start bouldering, no ropes, and then you kind of get into ropes, and then trad, which is like you add your own protection. And then I just found it as the next step up. Yeah, the first canyon I did was down in Sedona, just short of south of
So good.
Flagstaff, and yeah, immediately fell in. I was like, wow, this is awesome. You
Yeah,
get to
dude.
places that really nobody else goes to. So.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part about it because essentially it's uncovering the
Mm.
like at that point it's like uncovering things that the average person hasn't even like remotely seen in their life, which is a really
Yes,
cool
yeah,
thing.
I've actually done a couple of them where it was like a first descent. So like you were most likely the first people I'd ever even go into that area, which how grown the United States is pretty wild to think about.
Right.
But
Was that in Arizona?
in Utah, in
In
southern
Utah?
Utah, yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. Have you ever, maybe this was a scenario, have you ever been in a slot canyon? And what was that like? From my research, I
For
found that
sure,
was
yeah.
pretty
I've
cool.
actually maybe a month ago I did the tightest slot canyon in
You did?
North
That's
America. Yeah, it's I think at its shortest point it's like 5 inches wide and it's tight. Like you have to exhale all the air out of your lungs and stuff so you can like squeeze your body through. It's wild.
dude, that's crazy. Something that I didn't even think about when you do. So I would be remiss to say or to not ask, because obviously this is not the safest thing to be doing, correct? Unless you're, as you said, right, being educated, going with someone that knows what they're doing is extremely important. But has there been any close calls? I hope not. But has there been any close calls that you've been a part, like as you've been doing this for a couple years now?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. The thing is unique about canyoneering is it's really easy, but if something goes wrong, then it's like something went wrong and it's really bad. I've had a couple times where like you go down the canyon and a lot of times you rig a system to where when you rappel down the rope, you are able to retrieve it somehow. And there's been a couple times where you're going down and then your rope gets stuck and you're in like really cold water or it's dark and things like that. I remember one time I was in the Grand Canyon. Um, and I was gonna do the canyon in a day, which like you just hike down, rappel down to the river, and then hike out. Um, but it's like really hot, long, and stuff like that. And essentially, my rope had gotten stuck, and I was standing in this like leech-filled water, like covered in leeches, and
No
I'm like
way, dude.
trying to get my rope down, and it's freezing cold, and it's dark, and I can't see anything. And at the very last minute, like the rope came lodged done, and I was able to like hike out. I didn't finish until like 7:30 the next morning. Um, I would
Holy
say that's
shit.
probably the closest one where
That's all, dude.
yeah. I thought I was
That's
going to
crazy,
leave my
bro.
rope or something, and then I didn't know if my rope was going to be long enough for the rappels to go finish the canyon. It was cold, and so yeah, it was not ideal.
I also got to ask, man, because if I was, so you were talking about, I forget the name of the slot canyon you were talking about, the one that was 5 inches wide. So like
Yes.
when you have a moment like, so like obviously, like you said, it's not that challenging as long as you know what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
But even just like looking, I know if I was looking at a 5 inch 5 inch wide thing, I would be like, what the hell is going on? So how do you like? What's like the mental prep for anything like this, dude? Like obviously it starts with the gear in the beginning, but like
Mhm.
what's the mental prep just in moments like that where it's like, okay, this is gonna be kind of sucky, but I gotta
Yes.
navigate it, right?
There's been at least a handful of times where I've like the Grand Canyon moment where you definitely think to yourself like, wow, I actually signed up to be in this situation and now I'm here and I need to like kind of get out. That reading a ton, I read a ton about the canyon beforehand if I have any doubts.
Hmm.
But for sure, yeah, even when you read beta about being a canyon being really hard, almost every time you get in there, you kind of face like what they call the crux challenge, which would be like the hardest part. And yeah, you basically just kind of remind yourself like you know what you're doing, you're fit enough to be here. Those type of, you signed up to be here. The only way to get at it is just keep hiking or keep rappelling. So you just kind of go.
Right, right. And like when you started to get into this more seriously, like you said, like you're fit enough to do it, right? So like how does your like just for people that don't know, like what does it take to do some of these crazy experiences that you're doing in terms of like what your body has, the shape that you have to be in and what it needs to look like essentially?
For sure, yeah. And it's super seasonal dependent. And so like in the winter time, if you're doing a cold canyon, you might have 4 millimeter, 4 or 5 wetsuit or 5 4 wetsuit with like a whole jacket on top and you're still just like teeth chattering, freezing. But yeah, a ton of hiking, carrying heavy bags. Once
Yeah.
stuff gets wet, it's much heavier.
Uh-huh.
So really just, be able to ruck, hike with heavy stuff, no technical rope work. And then really it's a lot of mental stuff. If the start is weird or if you get into really advanced canyons, they won't have permanent anchors. They'll have stuff that you just pack in with you. So like I might take a bag and fill it with sand, just rappel off the bag of sand and then pull it
Uh-huh.
down. And
Uh-huh.
just kind of like in your mind knowing like it'll hold me, rappel,
Right.
like
Right.
just making sure like core control when you're going down, don't be jerky on the rope so it doesn't fiddle and stuff like that. So there's definitely, yeah, for sure physical aspects to it.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And then what you said you do this in the winter because I know most like mainly the seasons like spring and fall, right? For stuff like
Yes.
this. So you have done some
Yes.
stuff like this in the winter?
For sure. Definitely go. That's what's awesome about it is there's different grades to canyons. And if it's a grade A canyon, that means there's no water or if there's very minimal. And the desert of Utah is huge. So there's a ton of spots where you can do dry canyons for sure.
Right. You mentioned how cold the water is. That's what I was really curious about. Like when you're
Yes.
deep in these things, dude, what's I mean, ballpark for us, like how cold was that? Was some of the coldest waters you've experienced?
Like peak summer, some of them will be 40, 45 degrees. I mean, it's
That's
chilly.
nuts. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I did a really, really famous canyon in Arizona. I think it was July 29th, and I skipped the last rappel because it was so cold. I was like
Really?
like shivering. Yeah, it was because the water it'll never see the sun. It's so dark and like the animals will fall down there and they'll just be rotting in it and it smells and it's cold and it kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
like you said, you see stuff in places that, it's cool. It makes it
Yeah,
worth it.
dude. Yeah, for sure, man. No one talks about the leeches. They just talk about the views, bro. And the pictures on your Instagram afterwards.
Exactly. They don't need to know about that other stuff.
So are you using like neoprene? That's what I saw most people use, right? For like on their feet, like
Yes,
neoprene
yeah, the
socks.
neoprene booties. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes they'll have gloves too.
Right. I was gonna say, can you really wear gloves though with the rope? I mean, unless like I'm sure you can, right?
In a
With the
dry
rope work.
canyon, you pretty much have to because the friction, it gets too hot. It'll just like burn your fingers up. But in a wet canyon, it kind of depends. Like I'm actually going canyoneering funny enough when we get off the call on a waterfall, and I was thinking I probably won't wear gloves.
Yeah, that's the expert level. Everyone at home, please wear gloves.
Yeah, wear gloves for sure.
Yeah, dude. Well, I'm fascinated by this stuff, man. I gotta make it out to Utah so we can do it. Have you done the subway? And is that what's called the subway at
In
Zion? Is that like
Zion,
the famous one? Yeah.
it is the famous. Yeah, it's not a technical canyoneering route to go to the subway.
Okay.
But the three best, most famous canyons in Zion all lead out to the subway, and you leave through there, through the
Okay.
narrows and stuff. Yeah.
Sick, bro. So you've done that before?
Not actually, no, because I
Oh,
moved to Utah
bucket
about
list.
exactly, yeah, 8 months ago, maybe. And it was just way too cold. Zion gets really, really, really cold and like
Yeah.
thick ice. So I've
Uh,
been waiting for the summer to
yeah.
get warmer now.
There we go, man. That's you gotta let me know how that goes. And then, do you have like a dream place to be doing? I know there's some cool spots around the world too. Like, do you have a dream location to canyoneer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of spots. New Zealand looks amazing.
Yeah.
Some of the spots in Portugal, Spain, like where it's a little bit more tropical Europe. Mexico, I've done Mexico once or twice and it's pretty awesome. Super lush,
Really?
green. Yeah.
Yeah.
Belize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's dope, bro. That's awesome, man. And then you were also telling me, so what is it? What is your day job when you're not canyoneering? By the way, for the audience, I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, half-time raft guide, and then the other part-time, I'm like the manager of some soccer stores.
How is the licensing and process to get into? Is it whitewater rafting? I'm assuming.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And have you always loved doing that as well? Was that something you fell in love with in Arizona as well?
Actually, that's one of the few things that I did back in Maryland. If
Okay.
my family were to take a trip somewhere, a lot of times we would go rafting out in Harper's Ferry, like in West
Yeah, yeah.
Virginia, Potomac River. There's some decent stuff. So we would go up there, down in the Shenandoah Valley, and then Colorado on trips and stuff.
Right,
So I have
right.
done that before.
That's cool, bro. And is that just mainly a summer thing too out there? Right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
it'll get too cold.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then you said you're also into skiing and cycling slash mountain biking too, right? That's another passion of yours.
Yes, yeah, if I'm into outdoors, it's pretty much anything. But yeah, I actually just got my mountain bike tuned. Sorry, I was looking at it.
There
I
we
just got my
go.
mountain bike tuned yesterday, so I went on a super long ride and I was hyped.
Dude, that's sick, man. That's sick. Have you skied all around the West yet, or not really? Just
Just Utah, Colorado, and Arizona.
okay, dope. How's Arizona skiing? I haven't heard anything about that.
Not great, but pretty decent. The snow is super dry, so it's really powdery and awesome. And when it does snow, it's a really good time. It just doesn't snow a ton and it doesn't hold for that long. So once it
Right,
kind of
right.
melts and then freezes over, it's not that good. And then the ski resorts are super, super small and
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
expensive. But besides that, it's good.
That's a whole other conversation, dude. The ski industry. We'll save that, man.
Yeah, we will save that.
So interested, man. Like obviously, on the canyoneering side again, like that is the outdoor discipline I would say that you take the most seriously and do the most often. So can you just speak a little bit for the purpose of the podcast here, the next layer, just some of the gear stack? And I know it depends on time of year and terrain. So why don't we just do a cold weather canyon, right?
Yeah, for
What does the
sure. Or
gear
just,
stack look like for you when you're preparing for something like that?
yeah. Cold will pretty much always mean water. So, um, depending on how cold, yeah, wetsuit for sure. I also have like another little like short sleeve top that I'll throw on if it's really cold, and then a rain jacket on top of that and then the neoprene booties. Approach shoes are pretty much standard.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a modified hiking shoe that'll have a little bit of climbing rubber on the end of it, so you just have like extra grip. Because there's a lot of technical down climbing. Like if there's something that you're not sure if it's like big enough to rappel or down climb, like you can kind of just like extend your body down. So grip is good for that. And then I have two types of bags. I'll have a bag of like essentially that has a ton of holes in it, and then a bag that doesn't have as many holes in it. It is really just to drain the water out so it doesn't carry as much weight with you. So like a canyoneering a specific bag, high denier fabric,
Mm-hmm.
so it won't rip that easily. Same with your clothes, ton of sliding on your butt, jumping, stuff like
Yeah,
that. So you're gonna
yeah,
get dirty. Like we kind of highlighted a little bit. Gloves, if it's dry, wet, I pretty much always wear gloves.
yeah.
And then besides technical, not really that much. Definitely need a harness. You need a descending device, which is just something you can add friction to. So when you're slow, like lowering yourself down, you can control yourself.
Right, right.
And I always recommend a helmet. You'd be surprised, a lot of people don't. And actually, some guidebooks tell you you don't need helmets. Always wear a helmet.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the
So
same thing, dude. It's like when so you see someone in a ski resort, you have like without a helmet. It's like people are
yeah,
yelling from the gondola, like,
uh,
"Put a helmet on, you idiot!"
for sure. There's been so many times I pull a rope down, and as the rope is falling, it pulls a huge rock down, and the rock like lands on your head or
Yeah,
something. Like
yeah. I literally saw it. Yeah,
there's no
I just
reason
saw a
not
video of
to.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw a video of that when I was looking at stuff. Yeah. No, that's nuts, bro.
And then descenders. Besides that, like if you get into real technical stuff, like I was talking about sand traps, fiddlesticks, just like advanced anchor building technique.
Right, right. So when you're planning like a winter hike, for example, so if you're gonna do a winter canyon experience in Utah, right? So like, are you planning that so that you don't have to hike as far? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you planning it around the hike portion of it as well to get to the canyon, so you don't have to be out in the cold for so long?
Somewhat, I really just look at the technical section of the canyon and how long you would be exposed to cold water and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's totally a factor for sure. Because some
Yeah.
canyons require shuttles and stuff like that, where like the exit's here and you have to take another car over to connect. But more technical, like there's like three sections of the hike. There's the approach, the technical descent, and then the exit. The technical descent is what I would really pay attention to, how long you're going to be in there and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I was just curious because, like, I mean, on average, how long are you hiking to get? Like, I know it depends, but like, how long are you hiking to get to your location to
To
the
repelling,
spot that you
yeah.
want to be? Yeah,
Zion is notorious for having super long ones. Like the most famous canyon in Zion is called Imlay or Heaps, and to get there, it probably takes like 4 or 5 hours of hiking. But standard, like an hour and a half, maybe. I usually get around like 20-minute per mile pace. So if it's like a 3 mile, you could get 3 miles in an hour. You can move pretty fast.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. And then, yeah, man. So just like kind of getting close to rounding this thing out. Like, so you talked about some of the strategies you have for staying warm, like the wetsuit and the neoprene and potentially gloves and things like that. So what's something, just more of a hard hitting question, like deeper question. What's something that you've learned about preparation that you wish you knew when you were starting out? Like you said, you read a bunch of books, you have a bunch of experience now. What's something
Yeah.
about preparation that you wish you knew in the beginning?
Actually, funny enough, when I got into it, I really didn't know that much into it. I kind of just jumped in the fire. I mean, I just started going with friends all the time by myself, which is not recommended at all because it's so unique. It's not like a lot of other outdoor disciplines where, climbing, you do these type of things. Like rappelling and climbing and rappelling and canyoneering are two different complete techniques. You want to worry about, rope grooves and stuff. Yeah, really, like just don't underestimate, really. Like in beta and stuff, when people tell you like it's a tight squeeze canyon, if you're over 170 pounds, you won't fit. Like I would definitely take it with a grain of salt or most likely listen because
Yeah.
the people that write those things are generally pretty experienced. And like I said with canyoneering, once it goes bad, it's bad. Like if you need a search and rescue out of a canyon, it's bad. And you never want to even come close to that point. There's typically no service. It's really hard to get in and out of these places so to get rescued is not very logistically easy. So yeah, I would say like take preparation seriously and just take all your beta with a grain of salt for sure. Most canyons are pretty easy, especially in Arizona. In Utah, they get a little bit more technical.
Mhm.
But you can pretty much find information anywhere. RopeWiki is an amazing website. If you want to learn anything about canyoneering, just go into ropewiki.com.
Mhm.
It'll have almost every canyon that's been descended laid out in the country, beta and all that. So
That's cool,
just
man.
use your
That
resources.
Yeah, for sure. That's good advice. So some quick fires, and then I'll round that out with a last question. So some quick fires here. What would you prefer, a ski day or a raft day? Tough question.
Raft for sure.
Raft. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I like it. At Elos, we like the cold, but we'll take it. What's the
The
most
raft can
beautiful?
get
Yeah.
cold too.
What were you saying?
The raft can get cold too for sure.
That's true. That is very true. That is very true. What's the most beautiful? Tough question too. What's the most beautiful place you've ever seen? Maybe you can even say a canyon, but what's the most beautiful place you've ever seen?
Probably Illusions Canyon in Oak Creek. It's a
That's
subs
dope.
canyon of Oak Creek Canyon, and it's the drive between Flagstaff and Sedona. I would look it up. It's amazing.
All right.
Absolutely
All right.
gorgeous.
I'm looking. Make sure everyone looks that up. I'm gonna look it up right after. Maybe plan a trip. Are you into any books or podcasts or shows right now?
Podcasts, not as much. I used to be super into them,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a Substack I've been reading a ton recently from a local canyoneering guide. I've been reading his stuff, and then actually there's a hunting podcast that I watch a little bit. It's called Meat Eater.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So you're into hunting too. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if it's in the outdoors, yeah, I grew up duck hunting with my dad and stuff, so
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. That's also something I gotta get into more. So I promise one more question. This is a tough one, man. So get ready. So we always ask our guests, how would you define your next layer, which is a really broad question. So this could be like physically, mentally, really anything. But how would you define your next layer?
my next layer, I don't know, it'd be hard. I'm always trying to take a step up. Something I'm trying to think of a word that would kind of apply to that. Like before, like when I first moved out, I started bouldering and then you learn how to rock climb. There's different types of rock climbing, like sport climbing, where the bolts are already there. Trad climbing, where like you put your own protection, which is like definitely a step up.
Yep. Yep.
And then canyoneering. I recently I've been trying to get more into like much more technical canyons, hard, really difficult. So
Mm-hmm.
always just seeking growth,
It's
trying to
awesome,
get to
man.
the really, yeah, just the next step up that's the next
Yeah.
layer. Is always
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. That growth mindset, man. It's a
Yeah.
killer in any aspect of life, and we love
I
it
want to
here
run
at
a
Elos for
marathon
the
soon.
outdoors.
That's the next goal too.
Marathon. Nice.
Yeah, going for
Nice.
that.
I just ran my first one this past November. It is not fun,
Nice.
but super
No, not
rewarding,
fun.
dude.
Yeah.
Super
Where did
rewarding.
you run it?
I did the Philly one.
Okay, sweet. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the training is more rewarding than the actual day for sure. And that's
Exactly.
like true.
It's
You
pretty
hear
much.
that, but the discipline required to get your body ready to do that when you just jump in is pretty nuts. Like I was like we played soccer our whole life, but this is like a completely
It's
different
different.
beast,
Yeah,
bro.
for sure.
This
Yeah.
is a different beast, man. It's a different
Nice.
beast.
That's awesome.
Well, cool, man. Awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate you hopping on. It was a real pleasure to learn. Hopefully, our guests learned a little bit more about canyoneering because I definitely did today.
For sure.
But again, guys, be sure to follow Nick on all his socials. We'll link those in the description of this podcast. And then on our side, obviously, you can find us at elosthermal.com. All of our socials, TikTok, Instagram, and the like at elosthermal. Again, guys, thanks for tuning in to the next layer where passion meets performance. Until next time, where we do have a really dope guest. Stay warm, stay sharp, and push limits. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.